Greetings, everybody. Welcome to Macro Talk 2. It is Thursday, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and we're going to continue on with our discussion of ethics in macro photography in just a few minutes. First, I want to tell you on Saturday we have a presume 10 o'clock in the morning until noon, and in addition to the usual stuff that we do, and we'll probably do most of all of that. We're also going to talk about planning and a sense of purpose in macro photography, kind of continue this philosophical theme just a little bit longer, and we're going to look at ways that we can improve our enjoyment and our productivity in macro photography. So that'll be coming up on Saturday at 12:30. We have a tangent. Yep, we do, at 12:30 until about 2 o'clock, or whenever we run out of stuff to talk about. It's for people who like to make gadgets for their photography. It's a 3D modeling get-together, and we talk about stuff like Fusion 360 and 3D printers and what have you. So that's at 12:30. The invitation for that is over on my website. Go on over there, and yeah, you'll find the invitation is there waiting for you. The invitation to the presume is not yet posted on Patreon, but it will be this afternoon. And yeah, if the presume thing, by the way, for those of you who aren't aware of it, is a Patreon only thing I do every other weekend. If you are interested in that kind of thing, a private get-together, a couple of hours of FaceTime on a Saturday morning with me, which sounds awful, but there you go. That's what we do. And you want to be part of this this special group of people that get together for this, then just go over to Patreon, and you'll find more information over there. www.patreon.com/Alan Walls Photography, and that will get you there. And you'll become instantly more handsome and more intelligent, more appealing, amazing, all of these things. It's instant as soon as you join. Okay, yesterday I mailed out 10 cross-polarizing platforms. It's cross-polarizing photography platforms for bioluminescence imaging and observation, also known as XP3 Bio. If you're one of these people, that was your address, just went by, your thingamajig is on the way. So everybody that was on the list, you will be receiving your viewer within the next few days, within the next week at least. Okay, good. If you're interested in a viewer or a microscope conversion, I should show you the microscope conversions. I'm proud of them. They're finished too. Here are 4 of them that are almost completely finished. They just need a few last things attached to them. But if you're interested in something like that, then go over to my website and look for the new shop page. It's either shop or store. I haven't decided. In fact, come to think of it, I haven't even written the page yet, so don't go over there today. Go over there sometime at the weekend and you'll see information on both of these things. If you want to get one, that's where you'll need to go to find it. In the meantime, just go leave me a message in the Walls app, and we'll go from there. Okay, so they're on their way. Let me see. I've already covered that, There's a new live stream feature that I'm going to start doing. I'm going to start doing an online, it's all online, isn't it? I'm going to start doing a live critique of your photographs, and it'll be entirely voluntary. You can send a photograph either anonymously, or, well, no, you can't send it anonymously. I need to know who sent it so I can say thank you, but we'll critique it anonymously or by your name, whatever you want. There will be some information you need to include. For example, you need to label it live critique, so I know that that's what it's for. And yeah, just give me some your name, the EXIF data, and anything you want to say about the image. And as soon as I get 3 of them, I'll schedule that and we'll put it in the live stream, and it will be entirely friendly. I won't say anything mean about any photograph. Okay, it's not like the competition. This is just about trying to help you make better pictures. Okay, so the stereo competition is up and in full swing. Rick is chomping at the bit to judge your pictures, so if you have not yet turned in your stereo images or image, no, it'll always be images, won't it? We need at least two. Go ahead and get them ready and send them in. There have been a lot of questions about how you make one of these triptych things that I've told you about. I'm going to walk you through that again right now very quickly before we get into today's topic, because I don't want to confuse people and have you not enter because you're confused about that. So what I'm going to do is I am going to show you a stack that I just ran. Just ran it about, an hour ago, if that. It's 136 images of a beetle. The first thing I did was I went to, where is it? Options, Preferences. And in Preferences, there is an item called Stereo Rocking. You click this box, you select the number 2 for your number of output images, and you select for your Shift X limits 2 and -2. So you just need to remember the number 2. 2, 2, and -2. Put those numbers in, check that box, and hit OK. Then you run your stack. Usually just the Pmax is all you need to do. So you go to Pmax, align and stack all Pmax, right? You check that and it will start running. It will output 2 images, okay? Now, this is what it'll look like when it's finished. The last one will be highlighted. What you need to do is this. This is step 2 after you've done the stack. You select both these images like that. When they're both selected, oh, I'm in stereo view. Sorry, guys. Now I'm going to confuse you. Just ignore me. I'm going to turn that off. There we go. So this is the way it'll look when you get through with your stack. That's going to disturb you. There we go. All right. So this is the way it'll look. What we need to do is look at this as a stereo pair. Look at the 2 outputs together. So let's select the second one. It doesn't matter the order. You'll see why. Then go to Tools, Stereo, Start Preview. Now that will put one of these images on the left and one of these images on the right. But we're not exactly sure which is which, because when you do a stereo pair, one of the images is going to be what we call left eye. The other one is going to be right eye, depending on which eye is looking at them. So when you have your stereo pair, you need to look at it and see if you can see the stereo. So if you always use glasses, like I do, because I'm not particularly good at the cross-eyed, I'll put my glasses on and I'll look at the image. All right? If that image appears to be in stereo and you can see the formed image with all the depth you're expecting, then you know that if you're looking at it with the glasses and it's in stereo, the image on the left is the left eye. The image on the right is the right eye. If, in fact, you don't use the glasses and you use your eyes crossed, and you can see the first pair, or the pair that pops up in stereo with your eyes crossed, then you know, if you're looking at it cross-eyed, that the image on the left is the right image, and the image on the right is the left image. All right. That's how you tell. So in this case, I put on my glasses and I looked at this stereo pair, and what I saw was something very disturbing and odd. When I looked at it, it looked like it had depth, but it wasn't proper stereo. Well, that's because the images are backwards. So I know that with the glasses on, it's not in the correct order. So I swap the sides to check. There we are. And I look at it again with my glasses. Now it's in excellent stereo. So now that it's stereo, I know that in this set of images, remember this is now swapped with the first set, the left is the left eye, the right is the right eye. Now, we're going to make a stereo, we're going to make a stereo pair out of these 2 images. Now, it is the way they appear in the image when you hit stop what is it, stop stereo view. When you hit this, the last pair that was up there is the way the stereo pair will be made. So this is looking good with my glasses, therefore the one on the left is the left eye, the one on the right is the right eye. So we're going to stop the stereo view like that, and then we're going to go to Tools, Stereo, Make Stereo Pair. And we now know that this stereo pair that appears here on the right is the left eye, right eye, because this is the one that looks good with the glasses. Left eye, right eye. Every time you make a triptych, it is always left, right, left. Okay, that is the three images, one for the left eye, one for the right eye, one for the left eye. And the reason is so that people with glasses or without them can look at the images and see the stereo. So here we have an L and an R. We should rename them, shouldn't we? That's probably the best way to do it. So we know that this insect is the first one that came off. This is actually, let's look at the stereo pair again. Notice the artifact is a bit different on the two. This one's got a broader piece of artifact, and we know that this is the left image. So let's look here. Now this has got the little bit, so this is the right image. I will actually rename this one right. That's all we'll call it, right. In fact, we'll just call it R. Okay, which means this one, we'll rename it, it must be left. So we'll rename it left. So here's our stereo pair consisting of a left and a right, and we need another left because all of the triptychs have LRL as their orientation. So what we need to do is make another stereo pair using this as if it was one of the images. This will make sense in a minute. So let's highlight this, which is this pair, and the left. It's always going to be the left. We'll highlight that one too. Now we have both images. We can prove it by going to Tools, Stereo, Start Preview, and it should show us three images in a row. Left, left, actually that's left and that's right, and that's left as well. But that would be, if we made a stereo pair of this, it would be left, left, right. That won't do. It's got to be left, right, left. So we've got to swap sides. Let's do that. Let's swap sides. Now, even though that is too large for you to see it, there's the pair is on the other side now. Now this is left and right because that pair hasn't changed, and now left again because we moved it to the other side. This is the way the triptych is formed, so we will stop stereo view and make another stereo pair. Tools, Stereo, Make Stereo Pair, and bingo, we should end up with one image with three likenesses in it, in the order left, right, left. This is what you present in the competition so that a cross-eyed person can view these two to see stereo, and a person with glasses can view these two to see stereo. That's all there is to it. It's dead simple. Practice it a couple of times and you will be able to produce a perfect triptych that you can then export, save output image, and you can export it back to your Lightroom or wherever it came from. That's all there is to it. That's how you make a triptych. Okay, we're going to get serious now about other stuff, philosophical stuff. All right, let me just clear that and close that down so it's not filling up my screen. There we go. So let's talk then. Sorry about that distraction, but I really did want to make sure that was clear with everybody in case you decide you want to submit one like that. So why is ethics even an issue in macro photography? I was talking on Monday about my own discomfort with kind of the mismatch between what I believe our human responsibility is to be good custodians of our planet by not killing all the insects. Yet I've been fairly cavalier in the past about killing insects, so it has caused me some personal discomfort trying to figure out what the rightness and wrongness of my behavior is and what I needed to do to change it. So I have made some decisions about how I'm going to interact with insects, and I shared them on Tuesday's live stream. Feel pretty strongly about this, but it does raise a lot of questions about rightness and wrongness, and how do we figure out what is right and what is wrong in an area like macro photography, because there are things that are potentially wrong in our behavior. What got me started thinking about this was when I had the questionable idea about doing this for a living 6 or so years ago. I hadn't been doing it for very many weeks when I got an entirely credible death threat that accused me of being unethical in my behavior. And it's stuck with me ever since. It's not the only time I've received hateful letters that have accused me of all kinds of different things to do with my moral character. But that first one really shook me, and it's worth thinking about, because when we interact with the world around us, sometimes we do have to look at what we're doing and decide whether or not this is a good thing or a bad thing that we're doing on balance. So when we say that something is ethical, we're talking about a moral philosophical standpoint regarding the rightness or wrongness of our behavior. And why is that important in macro photography? Because there are several things that we may do that could be questionable in that regard. Like the one we talked about entirely on Tuesday was the collection and handling of live subjects, how we deal with live subjects, in my case, by killing them. Right, which is probably one of the more commonly encountered ethical issues that we have to deal with. So the concern is that there's a broader moral stance against killing anything, right? It's a bad thing. We generally accept that as a general rule, it's better not to kill things. And the same goes for restraining things or making things uncomfortable or hurting them, and all the way up to euthanizing them. So where it becomes muddy, and this stuff becomes muddy very quickly and all over the place, is, well, what is an insect compared to a human being, for example? We have absolutely no moral question about whether or not it's okay to kill a human being. So why do we have any concerns that it would be different with an insect? Well, it becomes very confusing as you try to apply the same argument to smaller and smaller life forms. Is it okay to kill a bacteria? Well, if you've ever taken an antibiotic, you appear to think it is okay. So where is the cutoff? Is it before insect or after insect? So we'll get into all of that, but how we collect and how we handle, how we interact with insects in the wild is one of the moral issues, one of the ethical issues that come up. The other one is the way we stage or manipulate the behavior of an insect that we're photographing. The issue here is that if you stick an insect in the refrigerator to stop it from moving around too much, or you drug it, or you put it in a transparent tube to photograph it, something that would probably be uncomfortable to a sentient being, or you have an insect shown on an inauthentic surface, a piece of glass or metal or something where it wouldn't normally live. uh, are we causing some level of suffering or disorientation or discomfort by manipulating these insects? So that's the question: is it okay to inflict discomfort on an insect to take a picture? It's not necessarily a morally clear thing to answer. A lot of people would feel that it wasn't ethically risky to do that, and others would vehemently disagree with you. So, what about the third issue that I think comes up a lot is the photograph you've taken. Is that actually the photograph that you took, or has it been altered in some way? Have you done something to express yourself artistically that is inauthentic in the way the picture is presented? And if so, have you shared that with your audience? So this is another time that ethics become important in photography. Is, are we showing true and authentic work, and are we labeling it as such? Because if we're intentionally misleading an audience, then we're encouraging that kind of behavior in other photographers. We're setting a bad example, and there is a level of real dishonesty in doing that. So you would have to think that there would be ethical concerns there too. So these are the three main areas that we get in trouble: is presenting the insect as something else by manipulating it or its surroundings, by being dishonest about what we've done to the photograph to come up with it, and by hurting or discomforting insects. But to be able to look at any of those things and determine whether or not on balance they are good or bad, remember that there's another side to this, and that is you're taking a photograph, presumably a photograph that could be used or will be used to raise awareness about insects, or educate people about insects, or just celebrate the beauty of the insect. These are all legitimate reasons to do things, but are they sufficient reasons to do things that involve, for example, killing the insect? Well, that depends on your moral standing, your philosophical approach to the whole question of ethics. There are three different ways that we can define whether something is ethical. One of them is the utilitarian worldview. One of them is called the deontological worldview, and we'll use simpler words than this. And the third is more based on virtue ethics. Let me explain the difference. In a utilitarian world, it is okay to do things that might themselves be considered bad if they have a greater good effect for the world around you. In other words, killing an insect to raise awareness to the plight of insects is absolutely consistent with a utilitarian view. There are people who believe that, yes, if you can justify the behavior by a greater good, then it's okay to do that. You may be familiar with the famous philosophical mind experiment of the trolley problem, where you have an out of control train running down the tracks, and you have a person strapped to the railroad tracks beyond a split in the track, and you have two people on the other track. Where do you send the train to? And there are all kinds of different ways you can look at this argument, and you can complicate it by making the one person on the other track a prisoner, for example, and somehow suggesting that would lower his value. Well, that's the kind of thing that you run into with talking about these issues in respect to insects. It's the same thing, just on a different scale. And what can seem like an obvious answer at the beginning of the discussion becomes much less obvious later on. So utilitarianism is the greatest good for the greatest number of people, and it is used to uh, uh, maximize the greatest amount of happiness for the largest number of people, even if it means not being particularly pleasant for an individual, in this case an insect. That is very much the position that I have taken, to be honest. Is a very utilitarian way of approaching this problem. But there are other ways that you can look at the philosophy of right and wrong. Deontology is the next one. A deontologist just says there are moral rules that you don't kill things, and there are no exceptions to that. It is the principle that matters. It's kind of like a duty-based ethics. If you believe that, if you believe that the deontological argument is the dominant argument here, then, and that killing insects is a bad thing, is wrong, then it would never be right. There is never an excuse to do it. There is never anything but the rule and the obligation that you choose to live by. So you would, in under the deontological philosophy, you would never alter a photograph, or never mislabel a photograph, or never kill an insect, because you've judged them all to be wrong. And that's probably a decent question, and the guiding principle behind it is the decision I made based on the argument that I believe is true for everything. In other words, I don't believe in killing things, therefore I don't need to go any further with the question about the insects. It's always going to be wrong. Virtue ethics is different still than those first two. In virtue ethics, it's more about, would doing this or would doing that make me more of a person that I would admire in somebody else? In other words, what would, you're focusing on the character of the person that's doing the thing. If by killing an insect, I believe that I would become less admirable to me as a viewer from the outside, then the argument would be against it. Virtue ethics would argue that no, I mean, that's not a good thing. That wouldn't look good. That wouldn't make you look like the person you want to be. It wouldn't make you look like a respectful, gentle steward of nature, and therefore the argument would be, don't do it. Don't do it if it's gonna make you look like somebody you don't want to be. Then that fails the test. So the question you would ask is, would a good person do this in the same situation? And if the answer is no, I don't think so, then you probably shouldn't do it, if that's the philosophy you follow. So utilitarianism looks at consequences, and if the consequences justify the behavior, then you're right to do the behavior. Deontologic argument is just right and wrong. If you believe that the behavior is always wrong, then it's always wrong, and there's no exceptions. So what is the right thing to do is the question. And virtue ethics, what would a virtuous person do? And if it's not that, then don't do it. So is it ethically okay to kill an insect? Let's bring it back to the question that started all this. Is it okay to kill an insect? Well, if you're a utilitarian and you can justify to yourself and to anybody that asks you what you're doing is it passes a few tests that would demonstrate that, yeah, it really is, it's okay based on the consequences, then you could certainly make that argument. It's an ends justifies the means. What are you using the photograph for? I took some photographs last year that were donated to a school in California that that had a group of children that were learning how to use microscopes. and they were underprivileged children who were using donated microscopes, and I donated my time to make pictures of insects that they were going to use as part of the training. And it was my opinion that under the circumstances, the insects I killed were an aphid and what was it, a mosquito, and a couple of other things. That none of them were primarily pollinators the way we would think of them, and more than half of them were insects that spread disease and had other unwanted characteristics that maybe made it easier to be on safe ground in euthanizing them. But I had to look at the killing of an insect through this particular set of prisms. So the argument for utilitarianism would mean that you had a good reason to kill the insect that outweighed the negative impact of actually doing the killing. And it has to pass the tests of being able to hold water. Your argument has to be a good one. In other words, is the good that you're doing measurable and real? Well, I believed it was. I believed that there would be a classroom full of children who would get to see detail on an insect that I couldn't have provided by photographing a living insect. So in my mind, yes, I thought there was real measurable good. The teachers would be able to report back on the effect of the images, and I thought, yes, that will be something that will shift behavior in the children. It'll have a net positive effect. The insect was not from a threatened species, so I wasn't doing anything to endanger a species that was already in trouble. And the act was not easily avoidable, meaning, especially with the aphid, I could not get the pictures that I was trying to get had the insect not been euthanized first. It would just have been impossible to position it like that. It wouldn't have stayed there. And I couldn't think of another way to do it. So in my mind, I felt like this was ethically justified to do. But if you can't justify that, you really can't use that argument. You can't use it with other people, but more importantly, you can't use it with yourself. And there are plenty of instances where insects have been euthanized in my lab to have spare insects available, to have examples of this, that, or the other insect on hand. That's probably not good enough. You can't kill insects speculatively and then come up with a good reason for it later. Not in my opinion, anyway. So, for the deontologists, if insects have a moral right to their life, even in a very minimal precautionary sense, then yeah, it's inherently wrong to harm them. End of story. So it's never justifiable to kill an insect if you're a deontologist. It gets a bit stranger with virtue ethics because, what does it say about you? Well, it kind of depends on which of the two previous camps you're in. Somebody could look at what I did with the insects that went to that school and say, well, yeah, that's a good thing that you did. It's a shame the insects had to die, but yeah, it would reflect well on me. For others, it would not. It would depend on whether the people who were observing my behavior were utilitarians or deontologists, I guess. But really, there's a lot going on here, and the truth of the matter is, we can manipulate other people into believing that what we're doing is ethically appropriate or ethically acceptable, but that's not the point. The point is it in fact ethically acceptable for me to do this, that, or the other? because it's ultimately I'm the only one that can decide that about me. So it's it, it's very important for me to be clear about where in photography, especially, seeing as that's what I do most of my time doing. Uh, if something is wrong or right to me based on my set of circumstances, that I adhere to what I know to be true. Otherwise, we talked about this on Tuesday, but when I behave differently than the way I believe, that creates a sense of tension that I'm sure everybody is familiar with. They call it cognitive dissonance, but it's knowing that something is wrong and doing it anyway, or knowing that something is right and not doing it anyway. That creates a very uncomfortable sense. So having a clear vision of what is going on inside us with respect to not just our photography, but everything we do is really, really important. Because at the end of the day, we have to own the act, whatever it was. I have to own my treatment of insects, which was why I have decided to re-evaluate all of that. And it's going to be difficult because a lot of the stuff I do was considerably easier, in my opinion, to do with insects that had been euthanized. So how I'm going to go about that is it's challenging. I talked about the 10 things that I'm going to be doing to sort this out on Tuesday, and I am already doing all of that stuff. So hopefully I will find a path forward that won't create so much tension for me. But anyway, um, so it's probably okay to look at a couple of the thornier questions. Let's stay on killing insects, but instead of killing something like a grasshopper or a butterfly, let's kill a mosquito. Is that okay? They're probably the most dangerous creatures on the planet. They probably result in more deaths than any other animal. I think that is true. We're talking about Anopheles mosquitoes now that carry malaria, among other things. So is it okay for me to kill one of them to photograph it? Does that change anything if what I'm killing is dangerous or disgusting, or if everybody else kills them as a matter of routine? We kill billions of them a year with our insecticides and by sterilizing water that's lying around and by getting rid of it. Yeah, there's all kinds of ways we kill these things. Is it okay for me to grab one and kill it to take a picture of it? Depends, I suppose. If you're utilitarian, what are you going to do with the picture, and why does it justify the death of a mosquito? And does a mosquito's life intrinsically have more value than a butterfly's? How would you answer that? I mean, it would depend on what your overall philosophy is. And certainly, if you're a deontologist, no, you can't kill the mosquito. It doesn't matter however many billions of them are being killed by other people. It's not appropriate for you to do so if you believe that killing is a bad thing. So it is, and it gets muddier and muddier. If photographing this insect, if photographing this dead mosquito that you killed ends up somehow reducing the harm of malaria by by being an educational tool for whoever, it doesn't matter. But if you play the experiment through and you kill this mosquito and it results in a direct benefit to lessen the negative effects that the population of mosquitoes has on their environment, is it okay then? Well, it depends. It entirely depends on what your standpoint is, and I hate to say it, but the deontologists would still consider the individual killing of an extremely harmful insect still couldn't be justified if killing things is not something that you agree with. You get to the situation where you have to say, well, at some point, deontology has to relax. It has to let up on this absolutism. And that's really where I'm going with this, because you'd say the same thing about the utilitarian. Surely to goodness there is at some point where your wishy-washy excuse for killing things doesn't hold water anymore. So it means that in the real world of dealing with insects in photography, you can't be a pure utilitarian or a pure deontologist, because that doesn't make any sense. You do ridiculous things when you become an absolutist in any of these directions. So it means there are times when it's more appropriate to look at things deontologically, and more appropriate then to look at things in a utilitarian way, depending on the circumstances. Which is why, when I was discussing this with Rick Littlefield last night, who wrote a nice piece on his website, photomicrography.net, about the ethical quandaries of dealing with insects in macro photography, that his basic summary of the thing was, yeah, it's complicated. Which I could have just said that and we could have talked about something else for this hour. But it's true, it really is complicated. So can you be ethical from the, say, the deontological standpoint, and unethical if you're looking at it from the virtue standpoint or from the utilitarian? In other words, these absolute rules are not consistent with one another. Take the mosquito that by killing and photographing it, you're having a direct impact on the success of treating malaria. And as a deontologist, you'd say, doesn't matter. You can't kill it. Well, the utilitarians are looking at that and saying that's unethical. Not killing that insect to photograph it to have this positive effect on the world is unethical. And so actually would the virtue ethicist would look at that and say, well, I won't say what I was thinking because it involves a swear word, but yeah, you could see very easily how two camps could see that behavior as being incredibly unethical, whereas the deontologist would see it at the absolute pinnacle of being ethical. They were doing exactly what they believed to be right. So if this thing is incredibly complex, like it appears to be, how do we deal with apparent unethical behavior in ourselves or in others? And how do we respond to charges of being unethical? That's the question I had to answer all those years ago. And I actually had more clarity on it back then than I do now, which I think is probably evidence of personal growth. It seemed, absolutely obvious that what I was doing was justifiable and ethical. I'm not so sure about that now, and it's the not so sure part that's made me, reflect on what I'm doing and consider making some changes. So we've got to be very, very careful in how we look at things, and it has to be consistent internally with what we believe. In other words, to be able to judge something either in ourselves or in somebody else as being completely ethical, we have to be completely honest and rigorously frank with ourselves. We have to look at our motives, and that is difficult to do. And not not many people are very good at that kind of introspection, looking about what's driving. It's very easy for us to do something because it makes our life easier and then justify it after the fact, when that justification may seem fine on the surface, and even to other people it'll seem fine. But to us on the inside, it's creating a friction because we don't truly believe that that was the right thing to do. Dealing with that is very difficult. It's kind of what growing up and being mature is all about, is learning how to be honest with yourself even when it's uncomfortable. And I think at the heart of being an ethical human being in any context is having a clear set of expectations about your own behavior. I say your own behavior, I mean my own behavior. The ethics is somewhat like pornography, in that you might have a hard time defining it like I am, but you know it when you're seeing it or you're not seeing it. You know when something is unethical, like the person that accused me of that. But the truth is, it's always a little bit harder to see. So what about pollinators? Would that change anything? If an insect was serving a purpose as a pollinator, would that make it more ethically risky or ethically questionable to kill it for a photograph? Well, obviously, I believe it does, because I don't do that. I mean, I don't do that routinely. But it just occurred to me, I have bought insects that were euthanized that are pollinators. So I need to think more about that. What about male mosquitoes? Is it okay if you were thinking when I was talking about the mosquito that it was, yeah, kill them all you want. They're horrible. Kill as many as you like, to photograph them or to do anything. Don't do anything with them. Just kill them. How about if I told you that only female mosquitoes bite? It's a true fact. In the Anopheles mosquito, only the female, and only once after she's laid her eggs does she bite an animal for a blood meal. It's because there are so many of them that it feels like the same one is biting you over and over again, but in reality it is only the females. The males hang out on plants and actually are not insignificant as pollinators. So when we kill a mosquito that's sucking our blood, we're killing a female mosquito. Do you suppose it's different to kill a male mosquito? They don't carry disease. They don't pass disease to human beings. They're the only blame that you could assign them is that, well, they're male mosquitoes. They mate with the females, and that's where the baby mosquitoes come from. So, okay, so they have some involvement in the negative chain of events that the mosquitoes are responsible for. But do you see how it's different, or do you not see that? I mean, is it less ethically defensible to kill to kill a female mosquito than a male? I don't know. I really don't know, and that's kind of the point of this. We really don't know, but we have to make our decisions based on the best information that we have. And I suppose now that I know that the males are largely faultless in this, I would be much less likely to kill one, because I can't tell the difference between a male and a female unless they're sucking my blood. So anyway, certainly, just to complete that circle, a utilitarian would probably say it's definitely cool to kill female mosquitoes. It's probably best not to kill males if you can avoid it. That's probably what they'd say. A deontologist, nope, never, neither. You can't kill any of them. And you know, it's if you're a virtue ethicist, then you know, what does it say about my character to kill female mosquitoes, but to spare male mosquitoes? I tell you what people would say that said about my character would be that he's nuts, he's crazy. But really, it's a little hard to pick that apart. Do you think that a person that was sexing his mosquitoes before he killed the females would be showing restraint and wisdom and compassion? No, you just think I was nuts. I know it. So, what about if you weren't killing the mosquitoes um, for, let's say you were killing female mosquitoes because you liked killing female mosquitoes? That would be a totally different ethical question. And yeah, I don't know anybody who kills insects for the pleasure of killing insects. I guess you'd have to be, yeah, yeah, that would be a problem way to be. But it does show that there are different ways of framing the same question. In other words, killing a mosquito is not always just killing a mosquito, and it has different ethical repercussions depending on which set of circumstances you're under. Do you Are you starting to see that there are more exceptions than there are rules here? That depending, it all depends is the answer to the question. Is it okay to do this, that, or the other in your macro photography? It all depends. It all depends on you know, where you are in your beliefs and how this act is going to impact the world around you. And it means that there are degrees. There are degrees to which things are. Nothing is purely ethical to everybody. Nothing is going to pass that test. Just as nothing, well, yeah, I guess very few things could pass the sniff test of being purely unethical to everybody. So there is no final arbiter that decides whether or not something. What's really important about this is where we fall with it. As long as you're being true to yourself and your behavior reflects what you believe to be true, that isn't going to stop other people criticizing you, mind you, but it will be the best you can do in aligning everything to be consistent within yourself as a human. So I think that getting clear about what we mean by ethics, and then making every effort to remain consistent with that set of beliefs is what it's all about. And if we ever find ourselves saying that we believe that one of these ways of thinking is always right, that there is one set of rules that we should be living by, I think we're missing the point and in danger of becoming kind of worse off at the end of the day. You can't just, as a utilitarian person, you can't just focus on outcomes. You also have to look at the larger picture, and you can. It's almost like a well-balanced, intelligent individual should be able to take the position of both a utilitarian and a deontologist and a virtue ethicist in any set of circumstances and come up with a more balanced, if nuanced, way of looking at the behavior, and avoiding moral absolutes is a good idea. So what about if you were a macro photographer and you were working in a politically difficult environment in a country in South America, and the authorities stopped you and commented that the pictures you were taking made the conditions in the area look worse than they really were. If you lied about that, you could avoid getting thrown in jail, and you could avoid negative consequences to the people living in that township or whatever. But you could go to jail if you told the truth that you were in fact photographing these insects to make the surroundings look dramatically worse than they were, to draw attention to it. If you were a deontologist, lying is not okay. You have to tell the truth. You believe that the truth is it's never okay to dissemble. So you're going to go to jail for taking that picture. If you're a utilitarian, yeah, honesty would be absolutely the wrong thing to do. It would harm you, your family, the people that you were advocating for by taking the pictures. It would be completely the wrong thing. And the virtue ethicist would be standing over on the side trying to figure out whether whether a lying hero is better than an imprisoned truth teller. So there are these kind of muddy areas in every corner of the ethical conversation. And I'm going to bring this back around. Somebody made a comment to me the other day about me being the only, I guess, mainstream, you could call it, macro photographer who operates in front of a lot of people. I'm the only one that is an insect killer. Everybody else is a a purist, an insect purist. Well, that's an interesting position or an interesting place to be. So let's look at that insect purist. Let's pick. Well, we won't pick anybody. We'll pick a mythical one who's out there who would never hurt an insect for anything. Absolutely respects everything. Do not kill, and is probably a deontologist in his views of it, or her views. I think that most utilitarian photographers, maybe like myself, would think that was wasteful and counterproductive. That there are times that you're missing an opportunity to have positive outcomes because you're making it impossible to kill an insect ever. And a virtue ethicist, might admire the compassion of it, but question whether being rigidly set in the ways of never killing an insect kind of limits their ability to promote the care of the insect population. It's very complicated. Don't get yourself into a bind because you think that we have to be one way or the other. That there is always one ethical stand that's correct. So when people suggest that my behavior is unethical, my answer now is it might be. I don't know. I'll need to look at it closer, and I'll need to look at it under all the different circumstances that were present when I did that. But you might be right, and that I think is the safest place for me to be, because this being ethically consistent with myself is ultimately the only thing that is going to matter. Because then I will be able to honestly own my decisions, and that was getting harder and harder because my my ethical worldview when it came to macro photography was pretty indefensible to myself. So anyway, I think that this was a lot to bite off for a live stream, but I've been wanting to talk about this stuff for a long time. It's too much material, and it really isn't. It's not an easy conversation to have just me by myself. This is something that if any of you guys want to talk about it, then maybe we can set up a time and have a chit chat about it, because I think it's important and needs to be talked about. Something else that's important is how beautiful this photograph is. Mr. Mike Olson took this and sent it to me. It's a cactus. Doesn't look like any cactus I've ever seen. I think it might just be the flower of a cactus, but it's a beautiful picture. Congratulations, Mike, and thank you for sending that. Very, very nice indeed. We're out of time. It's 3 o'clock, and as usual, I've just run my lips all afternoon. Hope you can make it to the Pazoom on Saturday. If not that, hope you can make it to the Tangent. Don't forget to go get your invitation over on my website. If you have any questions about this, I will read your comments as soon as I get done here. I have much to do today, but I will read this first. I think that there will be some important comments in here. All right, so moving on, what are we going to do next week? I should have asked if anybody had any suggestions. I'm a blank slate for next week. Yeah, if you have any ideas, drop me a note in the Walls app, and we'll come up with something. Have a great weekend. Stay safe, be well, and if you're in Illinois, let me know if you see an insect. I haven't seen one yet this year. Take care.